mean, it could be your fault.
Greetings, everybody. Welcome back to Factutainment, and we're doing the final episode of the first series of Walking the Dinosaurs. Although I guess we still have like the Ballad of Big Al, and if we want to check out the pilot episode, the entire pilot, we could. Um, where it's Death of a Dynasty, which is the one set in late Cretaceous of Hell Creek.
That's where all the dinosaurs died nasty.
I am Zero Yeti. And I am joined by owner of the channel, Oremaster.
Hello. I am not Death of a Dynasty. I am Death of a Bachelor by Panic at the Disco.
And the person who talked previously was Cecil.
Yeah. I kind of rushed my dynasty joke, so.
I'm also joined across the pond by Avery.
Hello, I am very much a believer in dynasties dying, so, you know.
And our final member joining us today is Beth.
It was a night like this, 40 million years ago. I played my favorite songs, picked up the monkey skull to go.
What the
fuck? Joke's on you, monkeys didn't exist 40 million years ago.
Open the door, get on the floor. Everyone walk the dinosaur.
When did monkeys evolve? 55 million years ago.
I mean, the song also implies that takeout existed.
That's primates, not monkeys. That's
a
distinction.
Well, there's New World monkeys and Old World monkeys as well. Anyway, so this episode is set in the Hell Creek Formation, 65.5 million years ago, which brings us to our first inaccuracy of the episode, that we now know that the Chicxulub impact of the KPG mass extinction event actually occurred closer to 66 million years ago.
I mean, they were close. They were kind of in a margin of error of.
And previously, when this episode was made, it was believed that the non-avian dinosaurs went extinct between 65 and 66 million years ago. And we've just been able to narrow that range down now. So we have some formations that have stuff from the specific day the dinosaurs died.
Specific ocean.
Yep, with the kind of iridium layer all over the Earth.
Another inaccuracy is just how the location is depicted, which is, it's depicted as sort of like this ashen, barren landscape with islands of greenery and trees. Sorry.
Which I kind of understand what they were going for, because there was a big peak in volcanic activity, which is also a contributing factor to the mass extinction. It's fun fact, it wasn't just the impact.
So yeah, it's very much depicted as this landscape, when we know that the Hell Creek Formation was actually much more of a wetland environment, comparable to the Florida Everglades is popularly brought up as an example of a comparison to it. Another comparison I've heard is the Okavango Delta.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's one in South America. I'm trying to remember what it's called. Is it the Pampas? The Pantanal. Where it's much more sort of like this style landscape, where you would have had, that's tiny.
Just, a flooded plain.
Flooded plain with a bunch of forested areas.
With how Google image search is nowadays, you have to let the image sit there for a minute, and then right-click open, and it'll open in full size.
So something more akin to this environment, where you have rows of trees, then you have dotted ponds and rivers and ridge lines and some mountainous areas.
Yeah, like admittedly, there might have been some kind of ashy, decrepit areas
As
very
opposed to-
close to the volcanoes, but not everywhere.
Speaking of volcanoes, it's depicted in the episode that the world is sort of choking, almost is how they describe it, where it's like everything's covered in volcanic ash, everything's being acidified, everything's kind of struggling to survive. And this is brought up because there is something called the Deccan traps in India, which this is also popularly depicted in, I believe it's Prehistoric Planet depicts the Deccan traps. This is AI. Why is it a science news? Fuck you, science news. But very much the popular depiction is of something like this happening. And that is because the Deccan traps they're like a Rip Valley in India, or maybe not Rift Valley. But anyway, it was a massive spot of volcanic activity in India during the late Cretaceous.
Have you considered they depict it as that because it looks cool?
Well, it also has to do with the episode's called Death of a Dynasty. And they very much are like talking about how the dinosaurs are kind of like on their way out almost, and then the meteor's kind of like the final
Finished
death
them
nail.
off.
We also hear this a lot.
Nice, well researched. Yeah, fuck, never mind.
Death of a Dynasty also means, I don't know.
That dynasty.
Duck Dynasty.
Okay, 1 second.
Okay.
Okay, so the Deccan traps, as I said, were an area of intense volcanic activity at the end of the late Cretaceous.
Mm-hmm.
And they are believed to, around 66 million years ago, have started erupting and building. And if I remember correctly, Deccan traps prehistoric planet. Yes. So this is how they're depicted at sort of like in Prehistoric Planet. I didn't. Okay, 1 second. There we go. They're an area of intense volcanic activity. It should be noted that there was volcanic activity occurring around the world. It wasn't as severe in North America as is depicted in the episode. And they're kind of depicted, especially like they mention a lot with like the pterosaurs, and we'll get more into it with when we get to Quetzalcoatlus.
Yeah.
That pterosaurs are going extinct, and a lot of creatures just kind of like struggling to survive and are already on their way out. This has been shown in recent years from recent discoveries to not be the case necessarily. There was an increased rate in extinction of species towards the end of the Cretaceous, but there seems to also have been an increase in overall just amount of animals.
Mm-hmm.
And this is believed to be somewhat effective. It seemed like a lot of dinosaurs and other creatures were kind of doing something. I forget the exact word of it, but it basically, instead of you stay in the same niche your entire lifetime, instead you go through phases where you perform a different niche in the ecosystem throughout your lifetime. An example of this is crocodilians. So baby crocodiles primarily eat small fish and insects. And then when you get to like 3-footers, they're eating waterfowl. They're eating larger fish. They're eating
Mammals.
small mammals, yeah. And then you get up past 10 feet, they start going after deer. They start going after turtles. They start going after like raccoons and otters and stuff like that. So they're filling different niches as they age. Which also occurs in some birds. It also occurs in many species of fish and a lot of species of invertebrates. Like, I believe it's dragonfly larvae are completely aquatic predators.
Prime example, yeah.
And then as they're adults, they're aerial predators, so they're a completely different niche. Another example is, and this is probably one of the more extreme examples, is frogs. Tadpoles fulfill a very different niche in their ecosystem a lot of the time than adult frogs do. And that is because a lot of tadpoles eat algae when they're just hatched. And as adults, the vast majority of amphibians are carnivores of typically insects, although some of the larger frogs and large salamanders especially eat small vertebrates and fish. So we believe this is what was occurring overall. And so we saw a decrease in the amount of species, but we saw an increase in the amount of animals total.
Yeah.
And we'll bring this up several points in this episode.
Yeah. The increase in volcanic activity would probably be sufficient to cause some warming of the globe and maybe the rainwater to become a bit more acidic.
It is believed that...
warming, you might say?
Well, actually, one thing, if I remember correctly, it is believed that the Chicxulub impact exacerbated and accelerated geothermal activity like in the Deccan traps. Because having a massive impact like that tends to cause a lot of earthquakes. Yeah. And it's very interesting. I don't know if I can pull up a visual, but I remember reading a study. There's evidence that in the fossil record that when you see a large meteor strike hit the planet, almost on the other side of the planet, there tends to be a big spike in like volcanic activity. It's almost like the wave is going around and then hitting. Or I've seen some people, and I don't know how true this is, but some people will be like, have equated it to when you like punch a ball in slow motion, you can see the force of the air goes through the ball and makes the other side of the ball bulge out as the side like you punch
say, is
in
it like a Newton's
goes in. Yeah.
Newton's cradle or something.
Yeah.
Might probably get to this later, but another inaccuracy I'd like to point out is they kept calling what impacted a comet.
That was weird.
We actually believe it was a comet.
Yeah.
Then that's a comet that would be weirdly high in iridium to cause the iridium boundary over the entire Earth.
Yeah. Actually, it was the third impact, and it was an angel that came crashing into the Earth, killing the dinosaurs. That's an Evangelion reference to all you guys out there.
It's Evangelion.
I say Ava. Fuck.
Evangelion?
Avon calling.
Yeah, because of the KT boundary over the entire Earth, which is just a very thin band with high levels of iridium, which I don't think would be explained by a comet.
Well, you see, the iridium would be explained by
Star Drop from Stardew Valley.
Oh, I was going to make a Borderlands reference because at the end of Borderlands 1, when you open the vault, it starts creating deposits of iridium to pop up all over the place. And thus the Powerpuff Girls were born.
Oh. You're here
I think peanut butter sandwiches are really good.
Why?
Especially when they have even jelly on it.
I think hamburgers and hot dogs pair well with fries.
You're witnessing the degradation in real time. The brain rot taking over.
We've always had brain rot and bad play. This isn't new.
All right. Okay, so I'm trying to research like it wasn't a comet or was it an asteroid.
Yeah. The dorsals I've seen have said asteroid.
Actually, it was the secret planet
Okay.
Cubon.
I mean, most asteroids are, in fact, shards of long-dead planets, to be fair.
Okay, so yeah, it's believed to now be an asteroid. It's been proposed that it also could have been a comet. Okay.
What's the difference between the two?
Comets are made of ice, primarily.
Mostly
Okay.
ice, and asteroids are made of mostly rock.
Oh yeah,
Or sometimes mostly iron and nickel, sometimes.
Yeah,
As
I guess
ore,
that-
which is rock.
I guess that would make sense.
No, as in almost entirely iron and nickel.
Please, let's not get into an argument over rocks versus.
But what does it mean?
Metal is rock.
It's like the carnivores were interested in it because they're meteor.
Right in.
Alright. So anyway, there's a Chicxulub impact crater. We'll get to this later. This is likely where the meteor struck.
It does make sense why it's more likely that it was a meteor that crashed into Earth, killing the dinosaurs, compared to a comet. What?
What language is that?
Chicxulub is, I believe, it's Mayan.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Mayan.
Yeah, it feels
Yeah,
like a
but-
meteor. Oops, sorry.
It's very. I mean, a comet would have still delivered enough energy, probably of this equivalent size, to do similar damage. But a comet would not really explain the band of iridium deposit at that
Yeah.
particular rock layer all over
And
the
we
Earth.
do think comets have hit the Earth previously. It's almost certainly.
In fact, it's proposed that at least some of the water on the Earth may have come from comets. Is something proposed?
Yes. All right. So
Like, comment, and subscribe.
Thank you, Beth.
So the asteroid commit genocide.
Gonna fucking kill you.
I am in a mood today.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the last episode of Infotainment.
we're not even infotainment. Anyway,
I'm sorry, I'm trying to stop and swear.
so I mentioned the Hell Creek Formation has been depicted as it's depicted as like an ashy area with like certain valleys of greenery, while in reality, Hell Creek would have been more comparable to a wetland. And this is sort of like, I actually like this artist's art quite a bit, where they do like the formations on what it would have looked like, how we think it would have looked like. And this is sort of like the vibe of the Hell Creek, where it would have been like swampy. There's still quite a bit of land, but there's quite a bit of water and trees, and you have various, and that's actually probably why we have a lot of fossils of Hell Creek, is because it was a wetland environment.
Wetland. Yeah, and there's obviously going to be lots of ferns and mosses and liverworts and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay, so that's another inaccuracy of the episode. It wasn't quite as desolate as is depicted. But let's get to the first animal of the episode and kind of start working on that, which
The mongoose.
is the Didelphodon.
Mongoose.
One of our earliest mammal ancestors. Not the oldest, but one of them.
It looks like a
I mean-
fucked up otter.
All right, so
It did not look like an otter.
in the episode, this is what Didelphodon looks like.
Looks kind of badger-esque.
It gives me more raccoon vibes, actually, with the pictures.
Yeah, I can also see that.
Okay. There we go. That's blurry. Anyway, Didelphodon. And there's also a puppet that shows up quite a few times in the episode.
I'll say the puppet
apparently there are no pictures.
wasn't that good, but at least looked better than the puppets in the last episode.
Yeah,
Mostly due to being covered in fur.
The practical effects in this episode were like way better than last episode.
For some reason, it wouldn't surprise me if this one was filmed earlier than the others.
Yeah. So Didelphodon is depicted in the episode as having like a very much like a badger-like coloration, and it's proportionally very similar to like a Tasmanian devil in the episode.
Mm-hmm.
And this is due to the fact that Didelphodon was initially known from the initial remains of Didelphodon known consisted of several jaw and teeth fossils, as well as a couple skulls that were really well preserved. Well, decently enough preserved. And Didelphodon was believed to be got around 11 pounds in weight, and notably its skull had large teeth, short jaws, but were also extremely, for their size, had a very muscular and had a high bite quotient, which means they had a very high bite force relative to their body size, which is very reminiscent of the Tasmanian devil. And we believe that since it got to Tasmanian devils got bigger than Didelphodon, but it was believed that these creatures likely filled a similar role to Tasmanian devils in their ecosystem,
which is something that occasionally hunted, but mostly scavenged.
So, Tasmanian devil.
Oh, I'm surprised more Looney Tunes didn't show up. Oh, there it is.
And so it's believed that they had a very similar head to a Tasmanian devil. So at the time, the depiction in the episode is actually pretty accurate for what we knew of the animal. It is now known that because of, and I don't think it's formally scientifically described, but there is
tell you why that's all wrong.
There is a mostly complete skeleton of Didelphodon now known. And it has been found that they had a much more elongated and like weasel or otter-like body not as with stocky. So it still had the very stocky skull, but it had a much more like slender build past that. So Didelphodon.
Which I suppose made sense if a lot of mammals of that time would have likely lived in burrows. So it being kind of more slender, at least to me, would make some sense.
So it's to believe that Didelphodon probably had more of a build akin to this. And it's actually been proposed that Didelphodon may have been semi-aquatic, like an otter. Which it is interesting that we think of otters as being like they're very distinct creatures that are like fully semi-aquatic, or in the case of like sea otters, nearly fully aquatic small mammalian predators. But we must remember that otters are in the weasel family along with badgers, honey badgers, weasels, stoats, minks. So they're very much like an aquatic version of that lineage.
Yeah, the only real differences being webbed feet, a kind of paddle-like tail, and more water-resistant fur, really.
And like a slightly different skull, yeah.
Yeah.
So that isn't that unreasonable for a creature to have a badger-like head, but be
Aquatic. Or semi-aquatic.
Semi-aquatic, yeah. Oh, that was a good one right there. It shows the different skulls of various critters.
What's up, Reddit? I shaved the faces of these various mammals.
Why?
Another thing is it's set in the episode to be a marsupial.
Marsupial.
It
Mhm.
is not a true marsupial. Instead, it's considered a metatherian, which are
Marsupial.
mammals that are closely related to marsupials that are now extinct, but they weren't true marsupials.
Yeah, because eutherians are kind of the ancestors of both kind of placenta-forming mammals and marsupials.
But as far as it's depicted habits in the episode, aside from maybe swimming quite a bit, it's not that unrealistic, and it's actually a pretty decent depiction of them just being they're general scavengers. They're also kind of hunting for their own food some of the time. They're raiding a lot of dinosaur nests. They're scavenging from carcasses. They're chasing bugs.
So actually, said quite similar to what a Tasmanian devil.
Whatever
does.
you do not Google bug chasers.
It actually kind of makes sense, talking about how they were probably more designed for swimming. When we go back and look at the idea that the land was more watery than was depicted in the show as well.
That's true, yeah.
Which
there are weasels that are semi-aquatic that aren't as aquatic as otters. They're like minks, where they do swim quite a bit, but they are more terrestrial.
That's one question. Do we know if they were oviparous or viviparous?
Oviparous, meaning they lay eggs.
Yes.
I believe we think they were viviparous.
Okay, because with eutherians, it kind of gets muddy because preplacental mammals.
Well, I don't know if there's only the mammals that lay eggs are the monotremes.
The monotremes are kind of considered to be very basal mammals.
Are monotremes eutherians? No, they are not.
They are metatherians, but metatherians are also, I believe, a branch of eutherians.
Fair enough.
Meta woman.
But anyway, where do we want to put Didelphodon?
I kind of want to put him up high. He's a little guy.
Honestly, I want to put him in A.
I'd put it like in
just to rep being mammalian.
Yeah.
Oh, I wanted to say
it's like the thing about this. The thing about this in this episode is this is the first thing that shows up on screen, but it's very quickly dealt with by something else.
There's also
there's also a later scene where two of them are like picking over a dead dinosaur egg, and they start going at it like cats, and it's really funny.
Yeah, I believe that was they superimposed the models over actual Tasmanian devils fighting.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me.
Also, it says that in the episode that they were about the largest that mammals got in the time of the dinosaurs. We now know that that's not entirely true. They got still fairly large at around 11 pounds, but there were larger mammals, including Rapinomavis, and then I think it's Vitana.
Pretty sure Rapinomavis taught me how to type.
Yeah, even then, I don't think these were probably not a whole lot bigger, really.
Well, I know Rapinomavis got pretty fucking big. One second.
Pretty fucking big.
Because Ventana was like a gopher-like relative that got around 20 pounds, so a bit bigger.
Yeah, the thing is, I'm kind of giving them a half point because most mammals of this time were relatively tiny.
There's actually a fossil of Rapinomavis, and it's a fairly famous fossil, Piscatosaurus,
Okay.
where the Rapinomavis killed the Piscatosaurus. And they ended up dying fighting in combat.
That's actually not that surprising considering what a honey badger can kill or a wolverine is able to kill.
True. And here's the fossil where I think they died in an ash cloud. But you literally see the Rapinomavis going for like the lower jugular.
Wait a second. Scroll down.
Uh-huh.
You're on Rapinomavis. Yeah, keep scrolling down. Like this is okay. I guess you didn't get the same image I did of like the. Like I'll post it in Discord.
Posted him.
I was trying to find something. I saw this.
Oh my god!
I don't think that's Rapinomavis, but
Oh, okay. It must be something else that the wiki picked up.
Pissomavis, more like it. Am I right?
Big
fellas?
chungus.
Big chunky.
that's a weird one.
Call my ass Bugs Bunny because it's a big chungus. What the fuck did I just say?
Please.
I said I do
Please
want to
don't
put
do
it in.
that. You're gonna have lawyers coming after you.
I do want to put it in A though. So I've got a rep.
It's like please don't talk over.
I would like to put him in A as well. He's a guy.
I'd say firstly, I think he's S tier for me.
Okay, S tier's fun too.
What about you think, Braden?
I think A tier is solid.
Okay, so A tier then?
Yep.
Alright.
We gotta save our higher numbers for the Tyrannosaurus.
Yeah, it just doesn't quite scratch S for me.
Doesn't scratch that itch for you.
No.
Next up,
Scratch your ass.
Thoracosaurus. So this.
Wait, are we not doing this by appearance in the episode?
No.
Or are we saving?
We'll jump around a little bit.
Yeah.
So Thoracosaurus is the walking. So Thoracosaurus is the puppet, the giant crocodile puppet.
Yeah, this thing just looks like a board with eyelids that blink. This prop. I think they used something similar in the last episode for like one of the big salamanders.
Wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, we paddle.
All right. So the thing with Thoracosaurus in this episode is it's not named in the episode. It's just called a one-ton crocodile. And unfortunately, in the book and companion material, so in some of the companion material, it's called Deinosuchus, which is a giant relative of today's alligators, which is in contention. Like there's a couple other very, very large ones, as demonstrated by like this chart here, of the largest crocodilians to ever live.
Porosaurus and Sarcosuchus and others.
Yeah. But Deinosuchus is a massive crocodilian. It's a more closely related to alligators than today's crocodiles. And it did live in North America during the Cretaceous period. A major problem if it's called Deinosuchus in the companion material is the fact that, one, Deinosuchus did not live 66 million years ago. It lived from like 82 to 73, so earlier in the Cretaceous. It is also not known from anywhere near the Hell Creek. It's known from, well, I guess there's been some isolated osteoderms found in Montana.
But even then, it's still the wrong time period.
Yeah.
So
It's found in throughout Texas and like North Carolina and some of the southern states. And it's actually interesting because it's found in places that would have been either side of the Western Interior Seaway.
Mhm.
So it would have been
it's actually
found.
quite likely that it was seafaring.
Well, that would make sense of. It's not found in like ocean deposits, but it's found in like wetland deposits on both like what would be Appalachia and what would be Lyrimedia.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that unreasonable because crocodilians today, a lot of them will cross bodies of water. Uh-oh, what happened?
We lost Braden, but he did say earlier that there might be some point where,
Oh,
yeah,
what do you have to do?
nothing. He just stated earlier that at some point his internet has been kind of wonky,
Okay.
and he might drop out at some point, probably.
Yeah, because even with like modern like saltwater crocs, they are quite known to just cross between islands in like Oceania. You know.
I mean,
Yeah,
even
I just-
American alligators, which don't drink salt water, cross bodies of salt water to like get to other places. That's why the Florida
Yeah.
Keys have
Get to the other
alligators.
side.
That's why the Florida Keys have alligators, despite being considerably away from mainland Florida.
I like the one Deinosuchus here that's just been flayed like a fucking horror movie victim.
Yeah.
It's to demonstrate its theorized musculature.
Braden did message me and say that his interwebs did drop.
Oh, fuck.
So, yeah.
So here's a
Yeah,
comparison
but
what
he was, but they were big fuckers, as
what
you can see here.
Tyrannosaurus Rex and Deinosuchus. That's another thing. If Deinosuchus is described as the crocodilian in the episode is described as a 1-ton croc. This would be
Dinosaurs would
1 ton
probably
croc.
weigh more than a ton.
Deinosuchus would have been 3 to 9 tons in weight.
Yeah.
So if it's Deinosuchus, it's a tiny Deinosuchus.
But there we go. He's back.
Deinosuchus baby.
But I don't necessarily hold it against the episode because it's not named in the episode as Deinosuchus.
It's in like supporting material.
And then in other media, like the Walking with Dinosaurs website, the animal is called Thoracosaurus. And Thoracosaurus, unlike Deinosuchus, did live in the Hell Creek Formation. It still was not quite the right build as displayed in the episode, but Thoracosaurus is a genus of long-snouted Eusuchian, which lived throughout the late Cretaceous up until the early Paleocene in both North America and Europe. It lasted from around 70 to 61 million years ago. So it actually lived through the KPG mass extinction event. And it's also about the right size as is depicted in the episode. It's stated to be around 1 ton. And
So about how long are they?
1 second, I'm trying to pull it up. Whoa. This is one where this is just paleo art. He said a Thoracosaurus watching the tsunami approach. Because that's one thing the KPG mass extinction event would have caused was tsunamis worldwide.
Mm-hmm.
So here's a Thoracosaurus watching a tsunami approach.
This will drastically affect the trout population.
So here's about Thoracosaurus, and if we use this scale of about a meter.
Why is the silhouette standing next to it a cowboy?
I believe. Oh, what's the paleontologist's name?
Well, you see, Cowboy traveled back in time to pose next to this creature and was like, yeehaw!
Dios mío.
No,
Couture.
So they're like 1 meter long? I don't think so.
no, Braden. What?
What?
What I heard was that they're like a meter.
I'm trying to remember the guy's name. There's a.
James Jim.
I know.
In Friends. The guy from Puss in Boots?
No.
The werewolf? The wolf from Puss
I
in
think
Boots?
it's Robert Burke. With a
Robert Bork.
You might have to type paleontologist.
Yeah, Robert T. Bacher. So
Yeah, that is a
Robert.
name. He was the consultant on Jurassic Park.
Gold in them there hills.
So Robert Bacher is a fairly famous paleontologist who's done a lot of research. He's basically a living legend, and he always wears a cowboy hat no matter what he does.
Oh, yeehaw.
And I believe that this
Cowboy hat stayed on
Next tab.
this is just straight up a silhouette of Bacher that they're using for some reason.
Heck yeah.
I'm gonna wrestle this gator.
But Thoracosaurus, smaller than Dinosaurus, but still a big boy.
All right, and I guess to answer Brain's question. So this sign says a meter. So if we take that into account, you have 3, 6, 9, and then you have 12, 13, and this is curved, so we'll say 15 to 20. The perspective's kind of weird because it's kind of curved.
So it's probably about 20 to 25 feet.
So we could call this a 20-footer?
Between 4 and
Okay.
5 meters in length, depending on the species. Could exceed lengths of 8 meters.
If we're feeling very adventurous, we could call it a
So
20
what's
tower.
8 times 3? 8 times 3.
8 meters is about 25 feet.
Okay, so yeah.
8 times 3 is 24.
Yes, but a foot isn't 3 feet isn't exactly a meter.
Okay, yeah. I was.
No, it's a little
upwards
longer than
So upwards
3
of
feet.
25 feet and a ton in weight. So that
Okay, so-
fits the Walking with Dinosaur Crocodilian a lot better.
Mhm.
Did we say 8 meters?
Up to 8 meters, yeah.
That's 26.24 feet.
Okay, so upwards 25 feet.
Heck yeah.
Avery, I almost called you a British cunt for no reason, and I apologize.
Wow.
So you didn't do it, but then you went back and said, "Yeah, I almost did it."
Well, that's because.
Well, excuse me for being able to do math.
That's
Again-
a lie. You can't do math to save your life.
Again, the depiction is somewhat off. This
Part of my
comparison.
degree was statistics. Fuck off.
I'm just fucking around. I'm sorry.
It would have had, because this is a more gavialid and related animal, it would have had a much thinner snout as compared to as depicted in the episode. It would have had a
like the river.
longer tail, thinner limbs, a bit of a less rounded body.
Y'all remember? I forget. Can we talk about Bond on the show?
Why would bring Bond up?
You remember that time when he was talking to the Pokemon Crocodile? He said, "Does anybody think this looks kind of lewd? This kind of looks like a penis." And it's like we all started shouting at him, like, "Have you never seen one of these before?"
You've never seen a crocodile.
Or a penis, for that matter.
Oh,
Who the fuck is
Because it was like-
Bod?
Don't worry about it.
Okay.
The guy from the D&D campaign that we always talk about
Oh, gotcha.
in bad faith.
Okay. Anyway, where do I want to
I mean-
rank crocodile?
Deer, honestly.
Like a B or C, honestly.
I think it was a choice to make it entirely a puppet with like no CGI.
I think it's also mostly just
Versus
because they
body.
just referred to it as a big crocodile.
That's fair. I do think if it is Thoracosaurus, it is neat to depict a creature that survived the KPG mass extinction event.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Like, I wish
25-foot
I
alligator.
wish they depicted it from the neck down.
Yeah, so just a head.
Head,
Yeah,
shoulders,
it literally
head,
just
and
looks like a
shoulders.
plank.
All right, so where do I want to put C tier?
C tier's fine.
I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Crocodile.
Next up is 1 second.
Oh, dog.
Butter dog. Dog with the butter on it.
All right, so we'll do. An Titan is next. And my parents refused to fucking turn down the volume of the goddamn TV.
Turn down for what?
Oh, something I wanted to mention. I forgot about mentioning, but I remember this is many episodes ago. We were talking about Time of Titans, and Brady, you talked about is there any evidence to support the spikes along the back of the Diplodocus as depicted? I said there wasn't. I am wrong. There is. These vertebrae have been associated with spines that may be keratinous that would have covered the tops of them and probably stuck out of the skin.
Okay.
So
Very interesting.
there is evidence for it.
Very nice.
All right. So next up, we will cover. We should probably cover a dinosaur. So we'll cover the Triceratops, which is the corpse in the episode. I'll just do a brief note.
I like how they got Torosaurus in alive, but Triceratops, the more famous dinosaur,
He's dead.
dead.
He did.
Yeah, it was,
I don't think he's dead. I think he just
I,
needs a little milk.
I think he did. I think it did like show up not dead, but they just didn't talk about it.
See, he's just kind of tired. Look at him there. He's just taking a nap. He just needs a little milk.
So it's shown. It's said to be a juvenile Triceratops in the episode. It's a pretty good puppet for just being a corpse.
Well, I don't think it counts as a puppet at that point. I'm pretty sure it's just a display
model.
piece.
Yeah. It is interesting that Triceratops does feature. It is one of, if not the most numerous dinosaur in the Hell Creek Formation in terms of fossils we have of it. Because, and I've made this joke before, every time they lead expeditions to the Hell Creek Formation, it seems like they find half an Edmontosaurus. Sometimes it's an excellent mummy. They find like a few bones and several teeth of Tyrannosaurus Rex, if they're lucky, and Ankylosaurus osteoderm, and they find like 4 Triceratops skulls. It's ridiculous how much Triceratops remains there are. And it's to the point of they must have been doing something to die in like peat bogs or something to the point that they preserve so well, because we don't have evidence that they were. We don't have evidence
really
that they were
stupid.
just insanely numerous. So it must have been that they were just like
Very good at getting stuck in people.
every Triceratops that ever died was like, we have to. My bones must remain, and they like die in a peat bog to ensure that they're fossilized. It's ridiculous.
The cycle of The cycle of life. Well, actually,
Maybe it could literally just be that
A life cycle.
their preferred plants just happened to grow around peat bogs, maybe. But
or
And there's
maybe
been some hypothesis of like, oh, maybe it's because they were so front heavy, they were more like better at drowning or something. But there's
to
another
be
couple
fair, rhino,
there's another couple
modern-day rhino.
ceratopsians in the Hell Creek that are nowhere near as numerous as Triceratops.
I mean, this is true. I mean, modern-day rhinoceri don't really do all that well in water. But
What are you talking about? The Asian rhinos are the Indian rhino and especially the Javan rhino are basically semi-aquatic.
The African rhinos aren't very good.
So I guess some minor nitpicks. It's actually we don't really see much of its behaviors or anything, and it's depicted as it's said to be a young Triceratops. I bring this up because we're also going to talk about Torosaur shortly. Sparkles, what are you fucking goddamn it? Sorry, my cat.
He wants in the episode.
She.
If I may bring something up, maybe the reason why there's so many specifically in this piece. So, don't some animal
Go on, continue.
So if I don't know how 100% true it is, but aren't there some animals that like if they're hurt or injured or if they're old, they kind of like go off somewhere to
place to die?
Yeah, maybe this was the what the fuck?
Maybe peat bogs were just kind of Triceratops graveyards.
Maybe
Elephants will go to a specific.
Maybe they were just.
Die.
I was gonna say like maybe a good example is how there's so many dead Irish elk in your peat bogs. It's just like,
well, it's time for me to die.
But yeah, this is one of my favorite images of all time. It's just Peter Griffin death posters.
Okay, so I actually have an image I'm pulling up. I just need to find a good copy of it or something. I guess that might work. So, in one of the Japanese Transformers Beast Wars cartoons, I'm going to post an image in the Discord channel. There's a character that turned into a Triceratops, and all of the dinosaurs in this toy series had this sort of trap mode where they disguise themselves as a dead dinosaur. You open up this panel and it has like the ribs sticking out. You push in on the tongue and the eyes turn white, and it just sort of lays over like this. A closer image of it.
Okay, I still love that.
It's relevant to the episode.
Yeah, I pulled it up. I'm looking at it.
Like it is specifically articulated to be able to lay on its side and splay its leg out like that.
Anyway, so I guess we can use the toy model as an example. So it's time to tackle one of the major. This is going to be a rabbit hole. So, Triceratops ontology was a bit of a mess for a little bit. And that is because
ontology?
So ontology is how a creature changes as it ages.
Right.
Specifically, a lot of focus is on babies, juveniles, and adults, and then occasionally you have elder forms as well. It also brings up for T-Rex as well. But so a lot of Triceratops depictions have it with these kind of spikes around the frill. These are known only from babies and young adults. And not young adults, like juveniles. And it seems as Triceratops ages, they lose these parietal spikes. I don't know if they're parietal, but they lose the spikes around the frill as the frill just becomes more smooth and much larger. Mm-hmm. And so we think this may have been a defense as a juvenile that they then lost as they aged.
Baby frill.
Part of the reason I bring this up, and you can see it like in a couple popular depictions, is I believe I'm not sure if the dead body has it, but it looked like it had it from what I saw. But Triceratops, skulls, age. Part of the reason I bring this up, I'll just have to click on
Gotta give her a minute.
Come on. There we go. Is you see a distinct like growth stages of Triceratops as it ages, because Triceratops is because we have so many fossils of Triceratops, we're able to kind of like track its growth sequence. So you have hatchling, baby, juvenile, subadult, full adult. So as they age, they grow out their frill, they lose the spikes around their frill, the horns become longer, less curved. This skull is a bit wonky because I believe these are broken right here, but their nose horns also grow out much longer. And there are two different species of Triceratops. There's T. horridus and T.
The biceratops, bisexual Triceratops.
Oh, there's T. horridus and T. prorsus. Horridus versus T. horridus. And it's actually believed that these two, I forget which one came first, but they're found at different like stratigraphy lineages in the Hell Creek Formation. And it is believed that one species actually evolved into the other. And so
Looks like a potato.
They're kind of differentiated by a bit on their skull, like how curved their frills typically are and how long their horns are.
If these images are anything to go by, then especially the nose horn.
Yeah. And I believe there's also...
Why did they choose the name Horridus?
I don't know. I think it means horrible something.
Your dinosaur fucking sucks.
Alright. So, I bring this up because there was a hypothesis for a creature much more shown in the episode, which is... I'll have to pull it up. Saurus walking with dinosaurs. Is Torosaurus. This is one of the feature animals in the episode. And Torosaurus, I think it's fun that they showcase Torosaurus in the episode. There was a hypothesis that Torosaurus and Triceratops were the same creature.
Same.
Right. I can get that.
And that they were different life stages of the same animal. And the idea is that it was floated, and I believe it was floated in like 2009. It was 2009, 2010. It was proposed that a few different creatures were like ontological stages, like a few different Hell Creek dinosaurs were ontological stages of other Hell Creek dinosaurs. And so one of these was, that we'll get into later, Nanotyrannus and T-Rex. One of these was Stygimoloch, Dracorex, and Pachycephalosaurus. And one of these was Triceratops and Torosaurus. And they proposed that all the adult skulls of Triceratops that we have are actually of young adults, and that all of the Torosaurus specimens that we have represent full maturity or possibly even elderly Triceratops. And that they propose that the Triceratops is notable for amongst ceratopsians, they have a very solid frill. Most Triceratops, well, not most ceratopsians tend to have some holes in their frills to kind of lighten the weight. And it's been found that most young ceratopsians didn't have holes in their frill, and that the holes developed as they aged. Triceratops is a notable exception.
Do the holes go all the way through the frill when it's not a skull? Because you see like pictures of some of these with the frill that just has holes in them.
I think I know what you're talking about. One second.
There was one in a search a little minute ago, and I wanted to know if that was a thing or not. That seemed odd. Yeah.
So this is a notably inaccurate depiction of a Sinoceratops, which itself is based off of a Pachyrhinosaurus reconstruction, where we have evidence of there may have been a Pachyrhinosaurus with a hole in its frill, which will show up later in Walking with Dinosaurs if we cover this awful movie, that has evidence that it was exposed to air. The evidence for this Pachyrhinosaurus individual having that is it was likely damage done in an attack, and then it healed, and it healed open. So that was going to be used for. So in the Jurassic World movies, initially they were going to put Pachyrhinosaurus in it, and so they designed a Pachyrhinosaurus design. And then, towards like halfway through development, or maybe closer to like 3/4 of the way through, they were said, "Hey, we want to sell these. We want to sell this movie and all these merchandise in China. And there's a ceratopsian from China known as Sinoceratops. Let's drastically alter the design of the Pachyrhinosaurus into a bastardized Sinoceratops, and then keep the holes in the skull for some reason. And then that became the Sinoceratops as popular depicted, while as Sinoceratops, more of a scientifically accurate version, is much lighter built and has a much larger nose horn. But no, to answer your question, outside of that one niche case of that Pachyrhinosaurus individual, it is believed that they were not. They were not open, because you don't see that in animals almost ever, because that's very hard to do without really fucking up your organs and like your body in general.
It's a good thing I don't have organs.
Because like think about in the modern world,
You don't have holes.
Unless it's like incredibly specialized, like your mouth or your ears, you don't have holes in your skull open to the surrounding. Like, who left? Braden?
It's just
we lost Braden again.
Okay.
yeah, it's just not a good idea.
So, human.
Yeah, it wasn't going back to talking about the things potentially just being juvenile forms of other things. I remember seeing this again on TF Wiki because there were a line of figures somewhat recently that all turned into dinosaur skeletons, and one of them turned into the Dracorex skeleton. And it says on the TF Wiki, this is theorized to have been like a juvenile Pachycephalosaurus or something.
Because if you look at the skeleton of like a human, for just a rough example, so look at your arm, and there's two bones in your arm, and there's a gap in
And-
between them. We don't just have a gap where air goes through and are walking around as living creatures. That's not a good thing. So yeah, that probably didn't happen in any dinosaur outside of possibly this one individual, and that was because of an accident or something that happened to it. Anyway, back to Torosaurus. So it was proposed that Torosaurus was an adult or elderly Triceratops, and that Triceratops, the reason we have so many like thick skulls is just they are much younger individuals than the comparatively rare Torosaurus, which because you tend to find more younger individuals. The elderly of any population are going to be rare just because it takes more. It's just harder for a creature to live as long, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The world is a dangerous place. You often live fast, die young. This
go fast, eat that.
This ended up being an issue because this is the largest Torosaurus individual skulls where they get significantly flatter and elongated.
Black Fuck Friday.
So
losers.
we even see that Torosaurus went through a change in development. Of this is a younger adult skull and this is a more mature adult skull. So that the frills do change in shape and size. Basically, the debate on whether or not Torosaurus was a juvenile Triceratops has more or less been put to rest, and I'll see if I can pull it up. Because
babies.
We found a baby Torosaurus skull.
Yeah, that'll do it.
Which more or less proves that, Torosaurus was its own distinct species. Well, not even species, genus. And here is the largest Torosaurus individual known.
But how many meters is it?
I can pull it up real fast.
About a
It's
Brazilian.
banana for scale.
Okay, so Torosaurus got up to between 13,200 and 26,400 pounds, or 6,000 to 12,000 kilograms in weight, and around 24 to 30 feet, or 7.9 to 9.1 meters in length. As far as Torosaurus paleo art.
Brayden did message me saying that he might have to drop out for the night if his internet can't get a grip.
Fair enough. But yeah, to talk about the Torosaurus in the episode, it's, in my opinion,
But it would have ass hair.
This one? Okay, so this is another one based off of Pisticatosaurus, which is another ceratopsian. Well, it's a close relative of ceratopsians. And I believe there's some evidence in possibly Protoceratops that they would have had these quills on their tails. And paleo artists have kind of taken that idea and sort of ran with it by giving a lot of different ceratopsians quills. Which may have worked in their favor, because if you look at ceratopsians, especially like, you have all of this armor in the front and almost nothing in the back, right?
Already in the back.
And the idea is if some people have even proposed there may have been like possibly porcupine-like quills along the tail.
Lord.
And because those are typically, they were made of more feather analogies in this case, but porcupine quills are made of hair, that those would not have really fossilized. Unless you're like having exceptional circumstances. So it's been proposed that they may have had those type quills. So, as far as Torosaurus in the episode goes, they are shown to live in fairly complex herds. They take care of their young, and the males notably fight for attention. And they notably fight for dominance and the rights to mate. This is fairly supported among ceratopsians, and it kind of differs between the ceratopsians, like I believe it's Chasmosaurians and Centrosaurians, where Chasmosaurians typically have larger brow horns and smaller nasal horns. Centrosaurians typically have the reverse happen, where it's the big nasal horn. So think like Styracosaurus, think Sinoceratops. That they would have fought with each other in different ways, and we have evidence on several Triceratops and Torosaurus individuals. I think maybe a couple of Chasmosaur individuals where they have puncture marks in their frills,
right,
that match horns of another of individual of their species. So the depiction of them fighting in this episode is probably somewhat accurate. Now we do think that they didn't just butt heads like bison would. Instead, they would have locked horns more like some antelope and then some deer do.
Kind of locked.
I have a
kind of sort of wrestle.
Yes.
I have a question relating to this fight.
Uh-huh.
There's the part where they lock horns and twist heads until one of the horns just like snaps out. How do the horns attach to the skull?
They are bone. They are extension.
Okay.
They are bone, much like a cow's horn is bone.
I was wondering, do they shed those at any time, like antlers or
No.
tusks? Okay, yeah, I didn't think so. It's just the way they depicted the sort of sockety shape of the broken off end of the horn.
Yeah, and that may have been a minor nitpick we could bring up is if the horn were to break, it probably would have broken much further up, like where they were touching,
Yeah, okay.
as opposed to further back in the skull. But we do have evidence of several ceratopsians that have had broken horns. So, yeah. Where do we want to rank Torosaurus?
Is Triceratops on there? We didn't do Triceratops.
No, because it was Triceratops just a corpse, so it wasn't on there.
We put an F tier because fuck it.
An F tier?
It's dead.
No, the Triceratops.
Oh, sorry.
Excuse me, sorry.
Okay.
What was that?
I sneezed.
Oh, damn.
Scream of terror.
I'm fine with putting it in B.
I'd honestly put it like A or S. I really liked it.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Especially like the.
Yeah.
Especially like the eye. It has like eye patch or what are they called?
Yeah, that's
eye
a
spots
neat,
on the frills, kind of.
It's like a neat speculative idea of like these would have been basically billboards for the animal, and so it's neat that they came up with an interesting pattern for them to like try and communicate. I am going to go talk to my parents about lowering the volume 1 second. Okay, and now on to the star of the episode, Tyrannosaurus Rex.
S tier.
Hang on 1 second.
Yeah, I don't know.
No, as overplayed as T-Rex is, I think they still deserve the S.
Okay, so here's the thing with the Tyrannosaurus Rex Walking with Dinosaurs model.
Maybe, but like the T-Rex in this episode, well, for one, I think this thing looks ugly as fuck, but also
you are correct.
It's mostly just showed dying. This is stuff that's like, okay, this thing's near the end of its lifespan.
What the
fucked at least.
Alright.
Not that it mattered in the end.
So here's some things about the
sex.
Tyrannosaurus Rex in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
Hang on 1 second. Tyrannosaurus Rex. prehistoric one. So the T-Rex in this episode is very weirdly proportioned.
Yeah.
So, one, the legs are too long in proportion to the body, so perhaps the trunk is just too not like big enough, like the body's not big enough. The neck is fairly small, like thin, compared to the head. The head's not big enough for the size of the animal, and the tail's not long enough. And the arms, despite being tiny, are probably a bit too long. The head shape is not correct. Like,
Yeah, it looks shrink wrapped and like really wrinkly.
so here's an example from a more modern interpretation of Tyrannosaurus Rex. It's much more heavily built than is depicted in The Walking with Dinosaurs.
Barrelier.
As you can see, this is kind of like, it's got kind of a... This is more, despite having the more prominent eyebrow ridges, which we know Tyrannosaurus Rex did have, it's more smooth in the transition into like the rest of the head. While as this is kind of, you have the eyebrows, then a bump, then another bump down.
Bump, no bump, bump, bump. 3 dots in a square.
And I guess here's the depiction. In general,
Venomsaurus.
the T-Rex may actually be undersized in this Walking with Dinosaurs episode. And it's just very weirdly proportioned, as I mentioned. The legs in comparison to the body are just awkwardly shaped. The head and neck aren't big enough for the animal. The tail is very kind of rat-like almost in comparison to like something it would have been much more built like. Here's an artist interpretation of take basically the Walking with Dinosaurs coloration and apply it to a more realistically proportioned T-Rex. And I know in the development, the reason the T-Rex kind of looks as wonky as it does was it was made by, I think, 2 or 3 different animators after the first animator had to leave. Like, they had to quit either for like a medical emergency, or it was either a medical thing or like a family thing if they just left the production. And then 2 other people had to kind of fill in and make the model work, despite not having worked on the original model. So it's kind of like very weirdly and poorly proportioned. I guess another inaccuracy is with the tongue specifically. We believe that tyrannosaur tongues, and possibly more applicable to theropods in general, their tongues would have been much more crocodilian and less mammalian, so they wouldn't have had this range of movement.
What does a crocodile tongue look like for comparison?
So crocodilian tongues tend to just stay at the very bottom of the mouth.
I see.
And they can kind of like move a little bit side to side, but they can't like lift up fully. And like they can't move them around like our tongue.
Right.
Yeah. That's how they get you.
They can very much taste, but they can't like lick their lips or anything like that.
Do crocodiles really have lips?
Not really. Which I guess that's another minor inaccuracy is we believe that tyrannosaurs and other theropods would have had lips. The Walking with Dinosaurs model doesn't.
DSLs.
Dinosaur
sucking lips, yes.
Another one are the teeth are a bit wrong. They're all basically shown as almost the same size, and we know that.
There was a decent amount of variance.
Yeah, like if you look at
Yeah.
Tyrannosaurus Rex skull, there's smaller ones in the front, and they get larger here before becoming smaller again. And again,
I actually remember.
Good.
I remember listening to a podcast where they were talking about like dinosaur accuracy in like Transformers or whatever, and they were talking about like the T-Rex versus the Spinosaurus because like ever since Jurassic Park 3 or whatever, those two have always been shown as like rivals or whatever, despite the fact that like
One lived in Africa,
the
one lived
person in
in
the
North
podcast
America.
was talking about the person in the podcast was talking about how dense the Tyrannosaurus Rex skull is in comparison to like a Spinosaurus out because like the Spinosaurus is like has a lot of cartilage in it, and like they said if you shoot a Spinosaurus in the face, you've just blown up its snout. If you shoot a T-Rex in the face, all you've done is just pissed it off.
I mean, I guess it depends on like what, didn't like
Well,
what caliber you would use.
But
Yes,
like a 9mm or something would probably just make it angry.
actually we know that like Spinosaurus and Tyrannosaurus Rex were very differently adapted creatures. Spinosaurus is this giant sail-backed crocodile heron that's semi-aquatic from North Africa, and Tyrannosaurus Rex is a heavily built, small-armed terrestrial predator that evolved from very small creatures and got real big real fast. They're very
And
different creatures.
and is it still the case that they have, at least according to some calculations based on muscle attachment in the skull and how the skull's built, might have had the highest bite force of any known terrestrial animal?
I believe so. I believe that's still accurate. I believe that there are some creatures that have larger bite forces, but they're like aquatic. Like some sperm whale analysis put them as pretty high. Some orca analysis put them as pretty high. And then, of course, your crocodilians. Can you hear me?
I also remember, yes.
All right.
I also remember that podcast. I think they like talked about maybe T-Rexes had bigger, like somewhat bigger or like somewhat more complex brains, maybe.
There was a paper
Think a little better.
published somewhat recently that argued that tyrannosaurs would have had the same brain capacity as a baboon.
Mm-hmm.
Which is
That's
quite a
kind
lot.
of been argued against because it's like, okay, this is kind of
Okay.
like you're using the most extreme examples of all of the brain cavity space, and you're making this argument based off of different analyses, and it's kind of shaky science. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
Right.
And also, at least based on what we know of Spinosaurus, it's not likely it would have. Well, I know the Jurassic Park 3
Would have encountered Tyrannosaurus.
representation is very inaccurate of Spinosaurus. But I don't think a Spinosaurus as we know it would probably be strong enough to just snap a T-Rex's neck like it did in the movie.
Yeah, I like that. We're not saying that Spinosaurus was a weak animal by any stretch.
But
It's
with
just
how
was very differently
we
adapted.
kind of understand how built and likely muscular and how just strong the bones of a T-Rex were, it probably wouldn't have been that easy a feat, you know?
And Spinosaurus, I guess, like one thing that's not, I don't remember. We'll have to watch Jurassic Park, the Jurassic Park movie at some point. Spinosaurus is notable in having much more developed arms. Probably a more realistic depiction of a KO shot would if it like just brained it with its claws. or gone for the jugular with the claws. Because fun fact, you don't need to have incredibly strong bite muscles or anything to just slash something's windpipe open. Because if you do that, it's just a matter of time for that thing to.
And then it's just a question
Nice,
of if
highly developed bite force. Check this shit out.
then it literally just at that point becomes a question of can the other thing kill you before it dies? Which in the T-Rex's case, I think, is actually not that unlikely if it does get a hold of you. But
And I guess we're diving too far into this. I was just gonna say, for Spinosaurus cray, it did also live alongside large terrestrial predators like Carcharodontosaurus.
Carcharodontosaurus, Yas Queen Slay.
I suppose even in that case, they did kind of fulfill different niches. But
a couple more things on Tyrannosaur. It's stated in the episode that females are larger than males. This is based off of there was a hypothesis that due to the various Tyrannosaur specimens, they tended to fall into two morphs.
Oh, hello, Sue.
A gracile morph, which I'll try and pull up real fast, and a robust morph. Sue is an example of a robust morph, where they're much more like heavily built, low to the ground. I believe Scotty is another example of a robust morph. Trying to find a gracile morph.
Yeah, I don't know why.
I believe the type
know.
specimen is a gracile morph.
Yeah, I don't know why it became kind of tradition to name T-Rex skeletons, but it did.
I mean, you have a couple named specimens of other dinosaurs. There's Dippy the Diplodocus. There's Yoshi the Triceratops. There's Sophie the Stegosaurus. But anyway, it was argued that because Sue is a robust morph and a female, that robust morphs represented female Tyrannosaurus individuals, much like how in many species of like modern birds of prey, females tend to be larger than males. So like female eagles are typically larger, female hawks are typically larger. This was somewhat disproven by the finding of a quote gracile morph Tyrannosaurus rex that was found to have been a female Tyrannosaurus rex due to the fact that there's a certain type of tissue that's found in birds that are actively producing eggs in their bones that kind of like helps with the formation of the egg shells to like then lay the eggs. This Tyrannosaurus rex was found with that tissue in their bones, which proves that they were a female.
Mm.
And now I bring up the gracile morph and the robust morph because this has also been argued by different people at different times to represent either distinct sexes, distinct subpopulations, or there was one where it was somewhat recently, and this was also shaky science, they argued that there were actually 3 species of Tyrannosaurus.
Right.
There was Tyrannosaurus rex, there was Tyrannosaurus regina, and there was Tyrannosaurus iberator, I want to say.
I do like that Regini and Rex both mean king. Oh.
I think it was king
kind
and
of
queen,
interesting.
yeah. And then this was mostly debunked, saying that like nothing that they found that separated these 3 into 3 different distinct species could be attributed to more than just age and individual variation.
Yeah.
Which is funny because then about like a year or two later, it was found that there is in fact another species of Tyrannosaurus, which is Tyrannosaurus macrinens. But this is based off of some morphological feature differences and the fact that Tyrannosaurus rex is found from like places like Idaho, like Idaho, Montana, the Dakotas, parts of Canada. And Tyrannosaurus macrinens is found from places like Utah, Texas, New Mexico, I believe parts of Mexico. And they are also found in their two different faunal assemblages, which are basically like the different creatures that inhabited the different ecosystems at the time. So it's evidence that these creatures were living in different ecosystems as well. There's the Triceratops assemblage, which is basically everything in the northern area where you have more of this like swampy wetland style environment. And then you have the Alamosaurus assemblage. Alamosaurus is a type of sauropod that is found in the more southwest area, which tend to have been more of like this coastal plains style environment.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's been hypothesized that, and also that it was also found that Tyrannosaurus macrinens was older, like they lived older. They lived earlier in the Cretaceous than Tyrannosaurus rex did.
Mm.
And so that has much more evidence than the study of Imperator and Regina. So in 2022, the study that said there's actually 3 species of T-Rex was published, and then that more or less got debunked. And then in 2024, there was a study that was like, there's actually another species of Tyrannosaur, and that actually has solid backing on it. So we went from 1 to 3 to 2.
The 7 to 8 to 9.
Well, we went from 1 to 3 to 1 to 2. Also,
what was that about?
Also, there's a whole thing about Tarbosaurus and whether or not Tarbosaurus is a distinct genus or not, or if it represents an Asian species of Tyrannosaurus. Currently, it's argued that Tarbosaurus is valid, but it's still kind of debated.
Yeah, what was that thing about Micronus?
Macrinens.
No, Tyrannosaurus Micronus. Oh, okay. I guess maybe that was what I was hearing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, and...
I thought it was like a small species of Tyrannosaurus because micro something.
Fuck, goddamn it, man. Okay. We get to talk about a fun thing now. Nanotyrannus.
Oh, that's the one.
So,
Chicken nugget.
Nanotyrannus. Hang on. Walking with dinosaurs. I believe it. Okay. So, Nanotyrannus may or may not appear in the Walking with Dinosaurs episode as the corpse that the T-Rex eats at the start of the movie. Well, the episode. This is kind of just a generic theropod model. It's really well detailed, but they never state what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And some of the companion material calls it Nanotyrannus, which is bad. Because Nanotyrannus is bad. So basically, Nanotyrannus is a proposed small tyrannosaur from North America at the end of the late Cretaceous period. That many argue to be a distinct... I don't even have to pull up Nanotyrannus article. It's in the T-Rex article. It is believed that people have argued that Nanotyrannus, which is also almost exclusively found from formations where T Rex individuals are found, they were classified as their own distinct genus, or arguably their own distinct genus, of small gracile tyrannosaurs that lived alongside T-Rex and other of like the fauna of Hell Creek and other formations that T-Rex was found in. And they were occupied the role of like mid-predator, which is in itself not that bad of an argument because it's kind of weird how you see a lot of smaller carnivores, like you have your mammals, you have some of your dromaeosaurs, you have some of your oviraptors, and then whatever semi-aquatic stuff's going on, like with the crocodilians. And then you also could argue that you have some asdarchids in some places, like especially in the Allosaurus assemblage, there's a lot of Quetzalcoatlus remains. They may have occupied the niche of middle predator as well. But outside of like the smaller theropods, you don't have any other theropods besides Tyrannosaurus rex.
Oh no.
Which is unusual because you take another formation that's well known is we talked a lot about the Morrison Formation. In the Morrison Formation, you have large theropods like Tarbosaurus, like Allosaurus, like Saurophaganax. You also have quote unquote middle, like mid-size theropods like Ceratosaurus, like Marchosaurus, like Stochosaurus. And then you have your small ones like Ornitholestes. So you have mid-sized predators. Or a modern analog is in Africa, you have lions and hyenas are your large predators, but then you have leopards and African hunting dogs acting as like your mid-sized predators. And then you have small predators in like you have various monitor lizards, you have various mongooses, honey badgers, stuff like that. In the Hell Creek and other late Cretaceous formations in North America, you don't have that. You have your small guys, then you have T-Rex. So it was argued that Nanotyrannus represented the mid-line, the middle stage of like the mid-predator niche. There has never been found a single specimen of Nanotyrannus that was an adult. Even their best example being Jane, which for a long time was argued to represent an adult Nanotyrannus, upon further inspection was found that they were a teenager.
Because I'm a teenager.
This circles back around to when I brought up earlier the Torosaurus Triceratops paper. In the same paper, they also argued that Nanotyrannus and T-Rex were the same species. This, upon further review, is argued by many scientists to actually have been accurate. We have... The reason I say Nanotyrannus is a shit show to deal with is there is ongoing arguments and constant fights in the paleontological community about whether or not Nanotyrannus is valid, is its own thing. And it's not helped by things like other documentary, air quote documentaries like Jurassic Fight Club depict Nanotyrannus as its own distinct thing that specifically preys upon juvenile T-Rex.
Very convenient.
Yeah. So there is evidence that as Tyrannosaurus aged, they went through quite a lot of growth stages, like as I demonstrated with Triceratops, how there's different morphs as they age.
Mm-hmm.
Saurus Rex growth stages. Here's an example. Come on. Here. So they would have started off as smaller hatchlings than this guy, but they would have been hatchlings. Then they would have kind of entered this growth stage, which is they're still like toddlers. And this is
He's a cowboy. Yeah.
their juvenile. Yeah, we talked about it. It's Bacher.
All right.
Then you have like your teens, or maybe more childhood. Then this is your teen subadult stage, and then your adult stage is back here.
Fat
and
fuck stage.
Basically, most tyrannosaurs are actually fairly gracile. You look at stuff like Albertosaurus, you look at stuff like Eotyrannus, especially. They are fairly gracile of build, and only towards the end of the Cretaceous do you see huge tyrannosaurs. And we think that is tyrannosaurs becoming secondarily large-bodied apex terrestrial predators. And we think that throughout their lives, they kind of occupy different niches in the environment. So it's been argued that the reason you don't see any mid-predators in the late Cretaceous North America is because T-Rex teenagers are acting as the mid-predators. Which, like I brought up with like alligators, like 6-footers are eating different stuff than 10-footers. So it would make sense in that regard. In this case, this is what would be argued to be Nanotyrannus, is this one.
Mm-hmm.
And man, is it constant fighting. And I think it'd be hilarious. Like, I listened to one colleague say that, what if Nanotyrannus turns out to be real, and it's also a juvenile of another separate creature? That turns out to be just this other huge theropod that's bigger than T-Rex, but because the juveniles were named first, it's called Nanotyrannus.
Macrotyrannus.
Milfy Tyrannus. No, was that weird? Sorry.
Okay, so this is long-winded to say the T-Rex in this episode is not that accurate, but it's still pretty interesting. Where do I want to put T-Rex?
Beth is right. The T-Rex in this one kind of looks kind
Maybe
of
A or B.
Yeah, I'm fine with an A.
All right.
I'm good with an A.
Like if y'all are going to insist, on putting it in high tier, just off name recognition alone, like a basic bitch, at least put it in A and not S.
Look, the T-Rex serves cunt continuously.
I mean, that did happen in the episode. It was certainly putting itself out there.
All right. Next up, Ankylosaurus.
Did you put it on the tier list?
I did. I put T-Rex up there.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so another inaccurate depiction in this episode, which is actually one of my more favorite dinosaurs,
It's like a banana,
is the Ankylosaurus. So the Ankylosaurus in Walking with Dinosaurs is fairly odd in its depiction, as they make it very round. And I guess just
like the shapes. The first time I've seen the back of it shaped like that with all the little round divots.
Have a good night, Avery.
Night, Avery.
Good night.
I like him because he's friend shaped with all those specs. I know that's a weird thing to say.
All right. I'm sorry.
It's all good. It's fine. It's a lot to talk about.
So Ankylosaurus. So I bring up it being inaccurate
What the
as
fuck?
this is sort of a modern interpretation of Ankylosaurus in the episode. Like, well,
Uh-huh.
not from the episode, just a modern interpretation of Ankylosaurus. They were fairly squat. They were fairly wide. And they were much flatter than they are showcased in the episode. As in the
Yeah, I
episode,
think I
they're
remember you
very
talking
round.
about this once before.
Also, a weird inaccuracy of the Ankylosaurus in this episode is the fact that they put its osteoderms vertical as opposed to being more plates on the side of it, which we know they were more likely to be.
Yeah, okay.
Also, their tail club is
So, like,
kind of
they'd
funky.
stick out to the sides, not stick up.
Yeah. Some other just brief inaccuracies. The head is, again, too tall, too rounded. It doesn't. The horns are too small because the horns are fairly prominent on Ankylosaurus.
Like, this modern interpretation does just feel like they took the color palette from a turtle.
Turtle.
I believe that's literally a box turtle color palette. And
Yeah.
then the tail club in the Walking with Dinosaurs model is very
Like hammer
round and bumpy. And we know that they were much more like flat and dense. I guess it should be noted that, however, Ankylosaurus, despite being the most famous ankylosaur, is actually only known from somewhat fragmentary material because just we don't have a lot of we don't have a near complete skeleton of it like we do with some other ankylosaurs. So a lot of Ankylosaurus have to be inferred from close relatives. For example, of the several specimens of Ankylosaurus that we have, we only have one tail club. Only one individual has been found with tail club, which is fairly odd. But in general, Ankylosaurus got to be around. It was up to 26 feet in length, but only got to around 6 feet tall because they were very short. They were very short and flat, and they weighed around 8 tons, making them the largest known ankylosaur dinosaur and possibly the largest, one of the largest thyreophorans to ever live. Only being contested by a couple kinds of stegosaur.
Mm-hmm.
And here's a depiction of roughly the same, how big it would be size wise. Another thing I'm going to bring up, as is stated in the episode, that their heavily armored heads are lacking brains. So, ironically enough, it has been found, I think I previously mentioned this, that ankylosaurs have the largest brains in non-avian dinosaurs outside of some theropods. So, arguably, when the Tyrannosaurus, Ankylosaurus,
Yeah, because they depict it in the episode as like, oh, it just lashes out because it's stupid.
So, ironically, these two may have been the smartest creatures in Hell Creek.
having a theological debate.
And also the depiction of Ankylosaurus destroying the leg of Tyrannosaurus. That's accurate. That would have happened.
Okay.
There's a ankylosaur called Zool, the destroyer of shins,
I'm fucking sorry.
because it's been found with where it was found. There has been other. So it was found from the Judith River Formation of Montana. They called it this because I believe, and I may be wrong, but they called it like Zool curvavastator. And it's known from a complete skull, some of the body, and a tail. And is one of the most complete Ankylosaurus specimens found from North America.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to. So it was given the name from the demon god Zool in the Ghostbusters movie. Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
And the reason it was called the Curvastator translates to destroyer of shins is because there are several theropods known from the formation that have broken legs.
You know what?
And
That's good for
it's
them.
believed that Zool may have been responsible for it. It also looks a lot like the ankylosaur in Dinosaur.
Mm-hmm.
This guy. Which I don't know why they made him a dog.
Because he's a happy woof woof.
Eee.
Anyway. So, another thing about Zool is because of Zool, we have, and other specimens found of Zool, we have evidence of. Sorry.
The
We have evidence that Ankylos on Zool that the Zool specimens found have damage consistent with being hit with a tail club of another ankylosaur.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because of this, it's been written about and like hypothesized that ankylosaurs developed their tail clubs not for defense against predators specifically, but instead to fight against one another for resources and possible mates.
Right.
And they have the added benefit of being real fucking good at breaking a theropod's leg. And I don't know if I can find it, but there's one of my favorite things of all time is there's a video where someone took like the Team Fortress 2 dialogue. And,
That's chuckle nuts.
yeah, and they're like, think fast, chuckles nuts, and they put it over the Ankylosaurus breaking the T-Rex's leg.
Get a look at those chuckle nuts.
You should probably type in "walking with dinosaurs."
Alright. Yeah, I'm not saying anything.
Okay, well, modern Google is useless.
Yeah. I don't know if this has it.
Ba, 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 ba.
No. Oh, well.
It's just
Oh,
Godzilla music.
yeah.
I thought I was gonna have it, but there's a clip of that where she's like, "Think fast, chuckle nuts," and just fucking destroys the shit.
I too like the chocolate nuts.
But yeah, where do I want to put in Galasaurus?
Uh,
B or C.
I'm fine with like a high C.
I really
As
like
you
its.
said,
I really like its color palette.
B is cool too.
I don't like its color palette the more you pull the model up because it just looks like a banana.
Okay. So next up is
Goodest of the goodest boy.
so we have Thescelosaurus,
Mhm.
which were the little ornithopods that were being hunted by the dromaeosaur.
Mm-hmm.
They
Yeah,
have a
They didn't really do much.
they have a green body with like a little blue head. They kind of just run away from the predator. This is sort of like a recolored and retooled Linealosaura model.
Mm-hmm.
Although I do like the color
Because
palette.
probably if they have
Although
the
apparently this is
model.
awesome. Anyway. So, there are some notable inaccuracies with Thescelosaurus. So Thescelosaurus was I believe it was small ornithopod. I own a bone of Thescelosaurus, but I don't know that much about Thescelosaurus. It's a genus of
The more you type the more you type these names in, I'm surprised you can just spell them all correctly.
So Thescelosaurus is a genus of small Neothorskian dinosaur from late Cretaceous North America. It's known from the Hell Creek Formation. Um, it, in terms of scientific accuracy, in the episode,
Mm-hmm.
it's not the worst design. It's also not the best design.
Doesn't stand out very much.
So you have the head's too rounded, the neck's not quite long enough, the tail's not long enough, the legs aren't necessarily large enough, and the body's fairly all right in proportion to the rest of it. It's just the rest of it needs to be like longer tail, longer neck. The biggest difference I can see off the top of my head, oh, the arms aren't big enough either, is that I just did I close it? I thought I just had the Wikipedia open. So the head is the biggest difference I can see, in that the Thescelosaurus in life had a much longer, like pointed head, and
Mm-hmm.
this is just really rounded. I also know that Thescelosaurus has large arms and evidence to have been adapted, as is depicted in here, to be able to dig burrows and dens in order to escape like larger predators, which would make sense. They also likely had feathering. But yeah, I don't really have much else to say about Thescelosaurus.
Yeah, it seems like a C or a D. It's kind of like a cameo.
Yeah,
Yeah, C is good.
I think it's neat that they're like, yeah, here's another dinosaur, even though it didn't get named. Okay.
Yeah, it does seem like the sort of thing they like edited another model they already had for the sake of filling in with something.
Yeah. So next up we have... So, in the episode, they're not specifically named besides being a dromaeosaur.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Those are the.
dromaeosaurus...
Oh, those are those. Okay.
So,
Huh. That's an interesting color scheme.
Ooh.
Oh, you talk. I'm gonna pull something up.
all right. So they're called dromaeosaurs in the episode. In all of the companion material, they're called dromaeosaurus itself, which has some issues for calling them dromaeosaurus, because dromaeosaurus itself, dromaeosaurus itself is a small theropod dinosaur that lived throughout what is now North America during the late Cretaceous period, but between around 80 to 69 million years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So it would not have lived at the same time as the episode. It also is known to have been proportionately quite a bit different from the model as shown. So
Right.
the model is a retool of the Utah Raptor model from earlier
I see
episodes.
that.
Well, as Dromaeosaurus, it's oversized in the episode. This is about how big it got in life. But Dromaeosaurus is also proportionally like... Of course. I have to click on you. It just had a different body proportion. So it had less of a curved neck, a shorter neck, smaller but more elongated skull, longer tail. Well, the tail's about right, but like a more flattened torso.
Okay. Yes. In the original Beast Wars Transformers line, they did a repaint of the famous character Dinobot who just turned into a raptor. They repainted it as Grimlock, but in that black and white color scheme. Everybody jokes it looks like a Dalmatian.
I do love me a good like black and white color scheme sometimes.
Okay.
Posted a picture of it in Discord.
Oh yeah.
I'll open it. Okay.
Yeah, he's a guy.
So, some facts about Dromaeosaurus. So, Dromaeosaurus itself was one of the first dromaeosaurs found, hence why the family is called Dromaeosaurus. Back in 1914, it was found by like Barnum Brown in Canada. It's despite having widespread attention from like popular media and having a famous mounted skeleton in, I believe it's the Royal Tyrrell, that then got replicated and put in museums around the world. Dromaeosaur itself is known from it's the Canadian Museum of Nature, not Royal Tyrrell. Okay. It's actually known from fairly fragmentary remains. It's known from a partial skull, two hyoids, a metacarpal, and some foot bones. And then later remains have kind of filled in some of the gaps, but not much. We know it was a small carnivorous theropod, which reached up to 2 meters in length, around 6.6 pounds, not 6.6 feet, around 35 pounds in weight, around 16 kilograms. And it had a robust skull with a deep snout. Its teeth were large but well
Closer
worn.
look at that snout.
and it had curved cones, caudal teeth with coats of enamel covering the crowns, which suggested that it used its jaws for crushing and tearing rather than simply slicing through flesh. It was likely covered in feathers and would have had curved sickle claws on each foot, as shown. And recent analysis shows that Walsh Dromaeosaurus would have been similar size to stuff like Velociraptor or Troodon, and would have been much more heavily built and more closely related to larger dromaeosaurs such as Utahraptor, Silvitor, and Yurgovicea. So, it being a retool of the admittedly not great Utahraptor model isn't that bad in comparison. It's still not a great Dromaeosaurus model, but I do think the color palette's really neat. One thing on behavior is they're shown hunting in packs. Again, we don't have any direct evidence that confirms Dromaeosaurs hunted in packs, but they may have done mobbing behavior where a group of them will come together temporarily to hunt. They're also shown hunting at night. So, evidence shows that some dromaeosaurs would have, I think, like Shibuya, if I remember correctly, has evidence of hunting at night, and Velociraptor do. Interestingly enough,
would they have? Well, what evidence would show how one hunted at night?
so you can do it based off of, there's something called the scleral rings of an animal.
I see.
And there's some other adaptations that kind of showcase whether or not. So yeah, here's like scleral rings of a couple different animals. Depending on the size of the eyes, the scleral
the skull
rings
looks so goofy.
Size of the eyes, the scleral rings, and some other noticeable like adaptations can kind of point out if something was more suited for low light conditions.
Right.
Is evidence that Dromaeosaurus wouldn't have been that great. Like, it wouldn't have had much better vision at night and may have actually been hampered hunting at night. There's evidence that Dromaeosaurs in general probably had really good hearing, so maybe they're able to just hunt the Torosaurus without having to necessarily see that well. The biggest thing when it comes to the depiction in this episode is it likely didn't live at the Hell Creek Formation. There are various teeth found in the Hell Creek Formation that are Dromaeosaurus teeth, or just Dromaeosaur teeth. And there has been some arguments in the past that that's evidence for Dromaeosaurus existing in the Hell Creek. It's more than likely that they represent another Dromaeosaur in the Hell Creek, of which there are a couple options. There are a Chiroraptor, and there is a Dakotaraptor. Both of which were represented in Hell Creek, both of which you could make the argument that this creature could be representing. Let's pull up each one of those. Oh, here's a cool one.
I was a teenager. Fuck, I was doing so good.
We went the entire episode without you singing it.
So there's a Chiroraptor, and there is
Dakota Fanning, yeah.
Dakotaraptor?
Yeah. Dakotaraptor may also be a turtle.
It also probably didn't live in Dakota.
It probably lived in Dakota. Is it a valid genus? That's a matter of debate. Some people have argued that Dakota Raptor is you found some dromaeosaurid remains that can't really be determined what they are next to bones of a turtle, and you kind of lumped them all together.
Jesus.
Where do we want to put the raptors?
C or B, honestly. I mean, they show up. They don't really do a lot other than chase the other guys off the beach.
C it is.
Yeah, I'm fine with C.
That's a B, but okay.
Oh. C it is.
I did say C or B, but
Then B it is.
Hooter.
our ratings mean fucking nothing.
No, they mean something. They mean that we're bonding as friends.
Okay. So next up is one that I have to look up real fast.
Oh, the snake. The snake.
So this is the snake. It's depicted. It's live acted by, I believe, it's a common boa constrictor.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Not like in that last episode where one of the animals was depicted by an actual animal that they kicked dirt at. They poked this fucking
with
snake
a
with a puppet.
There's not much art of this thing.
It's a snake.
It's a sniggity snake.
Okay. So in the episode, it's called in the companion material Dinalicia, which is a snake depicted in Hell Creek at the end of the late Cretaceous period. By late Cretaceous period, there were snakes. And yeah, basically its role in the episode is to be fucked with by two people puppeting Tyrannosaurus Rex chicks. There's some problems with Dinalicia showing up in this episode because, one, it lived around 85 million years ago. Two, it lived in South America.
Oh.
So it likely wouldn't have shown up in Hell Creek.
Listen, we had a snake. We had a snake on the. We had access to a snake. We're gonna use the fucking snake.
It is also shown to. Dinalicia, as far as morphology, was similar to boids, which a common boa constrictor is. Dinalicia also likely lived in a desert environment, so ironically, it would have probably been suited to the ecosystem portrayed in the episode, but not the actual Hell Creek ecosystem. Where do we want to put Dinalicia?
Probably a C. I
Yeah.
would have rated it higher if it actually did something.
Yeah.
Like if
He's
it
good.
maybe even a D.
The coolest aspect you can say for this is it means through its eyes we got to see heat vision, which was a neat thing, but that's about it.
Yeah.
It would have been cool to see it kill the T-Rex runt or something.
Also, the fact that what's the word? It's not really like practical effects or like CGI. It's just a snake. Like, come on, guys.
One second.
No seconds.
So here's an example of the Hell Creek fauna in general that we have direct dinosaur fauna. We have direct evidence for.
Is there a particular reason for that name other than all the dinosaurs?
Hell Creek?
Hell Creek.
Hell Creek Formation is extensively studied Upper Cretaceous, Paleocene, expresses along Oh, it's called the Hell Creek Formation because there's a creek called Hell Creek that exposes a bunch of rocks
Ah.
that runs through it.
And there's the Yellowstone Calavera underneath it. It's gonna blow us all up.
You know, we
Gonna blow it up right now.
We could probably use Yellowstone to power all of North America.
Or blow up all of North America.
And now I'm going to be mysteriously killed under strange circumstances.
He's gonna be thrown into a volcano.
For opposing an alternative to the oil industry. Okay. There is one other, I think it's just a cameo. If I can pull it up. Oh, yeah. Purgatorius. So there's Purgatorius, which it's a corpse again.
Yeah.
It shows up in the
Don't
episode.
even remember this.
It's just a little dead mammal.
That's a dead ass animal.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Purgatorius. So yeah, Purgatorius was a little semi-arboreal mammal that lived in the late. It lived in the late Cretaceous into the Paleocene, and it's known from Montana.
Oh.
I have much else to say about Purgatorius.
Except it sucks.
Dead.
Yeah, it's F for fucking dead.
All right, and now we'll do. We've previously talked about this, but it's time to talk about it again.
The pterosaur that kept on showing up throughout the episodes, and everybody's like, the lone and mysterious pterosaur. I was like, who could it be? It was Quetzalcoatl.
Quetzalcoatlus.
Yeah.
And
Is
it's
this
bad.
one different? Is this one different from the previous one?
Well, the previous one we talked about was from this episode. Because Braden kept asking about it.
Okay.
So, problems with this Quetzalcoatlus model, as we've stated in, because we talked about Quetzalcoatlus briefly in Giant of the Skies. This is not a Quetzalcoatlus. This is a weird Frankenmash of an Ornithochirus, a pterodactyl, like a pteranodon, and they made it huge, and yeah, it's not. It's not a good model.
Looks like a shrink wrapped little man.
So, for an example, if it loads, here's an example of a more accurate Quetzalcoatlus. As you can see, Quetzalcoatlus does not have teeth, and its beak is far bigger than this. 2, it has a crest, but the crest would have extended in front of the eyes quite a bit onto the beak, whereas this one just has more of a pteranodon style. It's not even a pteranodon style where it has the full projection back there. It's just a little nub. The neck, way too short. The neck would have been the neck of Quetzalcoatlus would have been as long as the rest of the body is tall.
Oh Jesus!
They are big. They are big. We call them giraffe storks. Yeah. The arms aren't muscular enough. They aren't like in the Walking with Dinosaurs one. They aren't like built up enough. They have a comparatively, the wingspan's about the same size, but Quetzalcoatlus was adept at walking on the ground while this thing kind of just like hobbles around and like They don't ever actually showcase it, but apparently in the books, the crocodile kills it.
Mm.
Yeah, the crocodile didn't really do anything.
Yeah, in the book that they made, the crocodile kills the Quetzalcoatlus. Another thing is, I mentioned there's no teeth. Just general lifestyle. The Quetzalcoatlus in the Walking with Dinosaurs episode is shown to kind of just fly around, land, struggle to get off the ground and fly again, and then
Like skim fish.
skim fishes to catch prey. In life, the modern interpretation of Quetzalcoatlus now is that of a giant semi-terrestrial predator that would have fed upon anything it could probably fit in its beak.
Oh, it's a pelican.
Kinda.
Mm.
Or like a marabou stork or something. I brought up previously that there's a gap in a lot of North American fauna of like no mid-sized predator. I personally, if I was a betting man, would say maybe that's a mixture of tyrannosaurs, younger growth stages, semi-aquatic predators like crocodilians, and asdarchids is what I would bet on, as those are the three things filling in the niche of mid-predator. If that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing they stated that Quetzalcoatlus was like the last pterosaurs left on the planet, and that pterosaurs are kind of just being directly outcompeted by birds to the point that only the giants remain.
Right.
This is probably from the assumption that at the time, the only late Cretaceous pterosaur remains that were being found were asdarchids. One, it should be noted that not all asdarchids were huge. There were some smaller asdarchids.
Scary.
Yeah. So there's a few different asdarchid lineages. Some of them got huge, some of them stayed smaller.
Pretty sure they have some of these in Elden Ring.
Yeah, this looks like something out of Elden Ring. Anyway, it's now more recent evidence, especially from Morocco, has found that both pteranodons, not like pteranodon themselves, but like the lineage of like pteranodon, and nyctosaurs also made it to the end Cretaceous. So there's more pterosaur diversity in the end Cretaceous than, and I think there's possible ornithochirids also from the end Cretaceous. So if I also had to be like a betting person, I believe that the lack of pterosaur remains towards the end Cretaceous isn't that there was not many pterosaurs. It's that we don't have formations from the end Cretaceous that would have preserved a lot of pterosaurs really well. Just as a product of bias in the fossil record, which is we haven't found those formations yet. Because a lot of the fossil record is somewhat biased in the fact that in order for something to fossilize, it has to die at the right place, the right time, to have its body covered in the right way. And the fossil record is also very biased against small things and things with delicate bones or remains. If you're small with delicate bodies, you do not preserve well most of the time, unless you're an exceptional. What about the thick femboys?
Pussysaurus.
Anyway, You also see that somewhat, like when you get to huge animals as well, you typically only find a couple bones. You don't find the whole skeletons. So there's kind of like a range where things tend to fossilize in size.
Mhm.
It also depends on the environment you're in. Different, like, stuff tends to preserve in wetlands, in oceans, and there's the caveat in the fossil record that if something died in the deep ocean and got fossilized, but that's still ocean, we're not finding it. Stuff
Not that
also
attitude.
stuff. Yeah, let's go see if James Cameron will give us a summary. We'll just attach drills to it, and we'll just dig up huge sections of the ocean floor for fossils.
Well, it's like how they build a portion the legs of a bridge. How they just like build a form, then pump all the water out.
That's actually something. We tend to find a decent amount of fossils through construction projects because that's when you're like opening the earth up. Because again, in order to find a fossil, they kind of have to be exposed either by us digging down or it being like on the side of a cliff face. Other places that creatures fossilize are deserts tend to fossilize decently, and then certain specific locations such as like stuff gets stuck in permafrost or a glacier, stuff gets stuck in a tar pit, or stuff gets flash preserved in volcanic dust. Not lava because that will destroy it, but like the dust cloud from a volcanic eruption can flash preserve creatures. Also caves, sometimes caves. But anyway, so yeah, the Quetzalcoatlus in the episode, it's kind of just, to me, it's just sad.
Yeah.
Where do I want to put Quetzalcoatlus?
D.
D, yeah.
I want to say F tier.
No, F is fine.
All right. Yep.
And our last dinosaur, which is in the episode they call it a Nanatitan.
Oh yeah, the duck-billed things.
Yeah.
The duck-billed platypus.
So,
Harry, the
episode-
Anatotitan.
in the episode, they're referred to as a Nanatitan, which means Titanic duck. We know.
Wait, hang on. Sorry, I disassociated for a second. What are they called?
So a Nanatitan means Titanic duck.
Okay, that's what I thought I heard.
All right. This is the historical name for what is now known as Edmontosaurus. So Edmontosaurus is a genus of large hadrosaur from North America,
Mm-hmm.
which lived from all the way from like Colorado all the way up to like Alaska during the late Cretaceous period, some 75 to 66 million years ago. They have a long, complicated history, being named first from two partial skeletons that were discovered in the Horseshoe Canyon Formation of Alberta, Canada, by like Loris Lombe, who described the animals as the Edmontosaurus regalis, meaning king-size Edmonton lizard. However, several other species now classified as Edmontosaurus were named both later and earlier. Charles Marsh named one in 1892, constructing a creature known as Cliosaurus. Many years, a lot of these creatures were called Trachodon, and later as Anatosaurus. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
And then Anatotitan. Two additional important specimens consisting of mummified remains preserved not only the bones but also the skin and muscles and several internal organs were recovered in 1908 and 1910 by the Sternbergs, which are famous fossil hunters and have a couple of museums named after them. Like dedicated to them.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see if there's. I can pull up one of the mummies real fast. I think I just passed it. I'll pull up this. And then Edmontosaurus mummy.
God.
Google.
You just gotta give me a minute.
Yeah, give Google a chance. All you need is love. Love. Love is all you need.
All right. This is an example of one of the
Well, you
mummies
need functioning internet infrastructure.
and healthcare, food, water, shelter,
Okay.
Sex.
fire.
I'm sorry
Crack.
that I'm sorry that the Beatles' dumbass little fucking song about Yoko Ono or whatever didn't include
What?
healthcare. I don't know. I'm based.
Okay, so Edmontosaurus. This is one of the mummies, which is Edmontosaurus has a very. I think I've talked about this previously with you, Aura. Edmontosaurus has kind of a unique honor of there are more mummified Edmontosaurus than there are any other of any mummies of any other dinosaur species.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And for some reason, they keep dying in areas that preserve their remains. So maybe they're following the Triceratops strategy. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's a whole door situation from what's the word from what Game of Thrones, where like actually I don't know what happened with that man, so never mind.
Okay. So, there are two species of Edmontosaurus considered valid currently. There's E. regalis and E. nectans.
Uh-huh.
There was also one that may or may not be valid called Arugacanolic,
Mhm.
which was one specifically from Alaska that was kind of smaller. But E. nectans and E. regalis reach anywhere from 30 to 43, upwards of 43 feet in length, and around 4 to 7 tons in weight, making them amongst the largest hadrosaurids and the largest non-sauropod dinosaurs to ever exist.
Damn.
So that's one of the first things. In this episode,
Oh Jesus.
Edmontosaurus is shown is fairly considerably, as an Anatitan, undersized, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's like the T-Rex
No.
runs up and kind of just like easily knocks one over and like kills it, and it's bigger than it.
Mhm.
Well, as in real life, Edmontosaurus was either comparable in size to T-Rex or just straight up larger than T-Rex.
Must have been malnourished.
Which I guess in the episode they are stated as somewhat
Yeah, it was
starving.
the end of the world.
And there is a bit of a range of Edmontosaurus individuals in size. Another thing is there are the two species known, and Edmontosaurus regalis. I was trying to hope for a comparison.
The black one.
What?
The fucking turkey vulture.
So I believe it's E. regalis is also now known to have the sort of like fleshy comb on the top of its head
Mm-hmm.
that would have been more of like a display structure.
Mm-hmm.
So in general, some inaccuracies with the Edmontosaurus model in this episode as an Anatitan. One is we know that they would have had like a fleshy hoof on their forefeet to walk on, and this is sort of like there's part of one, but there's also like this other finger that's separate. That would have been
It's almost
more
like fingers.
Yeah, they would have been more fused into like one, and it's called like a mitten in the text, which is weird. But like, yeah, they're like a mitten of flesh.
Oh no.
Mitten of flesh.
Another thing is they're shown with very flat skulls. We now know that the skulls, hence the name duck-billed. We now know that this is part of it is some of the remains were kind of like crushed and squashed, and part of it is that they had this beak-like structure that didn't preserve on a lot of specimens that would have covered the mouth and made it like thicker
Mm-hmm.
and would have helped them chomp vegetation.
But is the duck bill accurate?
No.
Oh. Is that the same for all the dinosaurs that are usually depicted duck bill like?
So this is what
Mm.
it probably would have looked like. Is you would have had a beak. So it's not like a crazy it's not a crazy difference, but it wouldn't have just been like a duck-like bill. It would have had a beak at the front and on both the top and bottom jaws. This could be interpreted as a nectin, so it didn't necessarily have to have a fleshy comb on its head. Hang on, like this one does. This is, I believe, regalis. Yeah. Some other minor nitpicks is the legs are kind of not large enough, but the arms are a bit too large.
Mm-hmm.
It's shown walking on all four legs quite a bit. It does walk on two legs a little bit, but it probably could have walked on two legs more. The tail isn't quite long enough, and overall they're just not large enough, and the neck is pretty thin. It wouldn't have had this pronounced of a curve. It would have been more level.
Oh no.
But yeah, where do we want to put Edmontosaurus or an Anatitan?
I like his. I'll let you go first, Beth.
It's not particularly stand out. Might be like a C or B.
B.
Yeah, B's fine.
Okay. And then where do we want to rank the episode as a whole?
Okay, so earlier I texted Braden to be like, hey, what's your opinion on the film and the episode? He responded with, fuck bitches, I'm kidding, no. He responded with, I liked it better than the last. I'll give it somewhere around the B or A mark. Personally, I thought this episode was definitely better than the last episode. We had all the practical. We had practical effects. We had puppets. We had CGI. We had actual animals. I honestly would say that this is an A episode to me.
Yeah. Did Avery say what he thought?
I don't think. Oh wait, hang on.
I don't think so.
Let me check.
I'd probably put it in a B. Like, it didn't have much of the emotional through line that some of the better episodes had, but it was, fine. It wasn't awful or anything.
Okay, I can work with a B too.
I will say I I think the episode's interesting, other than they kind of got the location wrong, like as
Mhm.
far as the depiction of it. I also didn't like the narrative of
I
like
guess
the dinosaurs are already on their way out.
yeah. I guess some interesting parts of the episode are the part at the beginning where the Tyrannosaurus eats the little mammal and then like spittles all over the camera.
Yeah.
And then like the part with
Go ahead.
the part with the comets or
The asteroid.
the impact. How because you're seeing it from the point of view of the dinosaurs, more or less. They don't show it from like space or anything. It's basically just a bright flash followed by a big smoke cloud blowing everything away, and then like raining fire.
Yeah, the
It's also not very detailed necessarily.
Yeah, to be honest,
some fantastic art of it.
when the meteorite fell, I thought it was a volcano.
So I think it's neat that we got the end of the Wagwan dinosaurs is literally the end of the non-avian dinosaurs. If anything, they probably could have given it another couple minutes because
Yeah.
they did like a really accelerated version of something that was already a really fast event. Because they see the flash of light, and then it's like dust cloud, sonic boom. Other things that happened when the Chicxulub meteor hit: tsunamis around the world, earthquakes around the world. They could have probably featured the earthquakes at least. It was also another thing that
Yeah, I'm
I
guessing
learned.
they were just stretched for time because it's half an hour.
Well, another thing I learned about the Chicxulub impact recently is the earthquakes would have hit before the sonic boom. So you would have seen flash of light, then you would have felt the earthquakes, and this would have been larger earthquakes than any in recorded history. Then you would have got hit with a sonic boom, and then dust clouds and rains of fire, and then the sun being blocked out for 2 years. But yeah.
Oh yeah, there's also the part where the Tyrannosaurus goes into the like gas field, where it's like it's just tall enough to not be in the gas field unless it bends down to get the dead thing it's trying to eat.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's like that. It's like that one meme of like the good thing about being tall is you have all the good air up here, and then down where everybody else is the air where your dick's been.
Okay, so what do we think? A tier, B tier?
Yeah, B.
B's fine, yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for joining us for this episode. Bye.
Next time we review Walking with Dinosaur Yuri? Oh, what?